Well, good morning, everyone, and welcome to Bumper Radio. I am Dave Riccio. Matt Allen is out, so today I am your KTR car guy, but don't worry, I brought help. We're heard here every Saturday from 11 to noon. At Bumper Radio, we are helping you, the motoring public, have a better overall car experience. If you've got car questions, we've got answers. So we encourage you to give us a call at 602-277-5827, 602-277-KTAR, or text us at 411-923. Today on the Bumper to Bumper Roadmap, we're going to be taking your phone calls and your texts. We're going to get a little phone call from the Good Guys Car Show. And water pumps, when do you need one? And I told you I brought help today. I brought Kurt Morgan from Shadow Mountain Auto Repair, which is at 32nd Street in Shea. That's my neighborhood and where I grew up. And Kurt, today, water pumps. I know that water pumps are one of those things that seem like we used to do them all the time. It's not as frequent, but how many water pumps a week do you do in your shop in the middle of July?
Well, that's when we're doing them. If we're going to do them, it's going to be the heat just hits them and kills them. But, you know, you just hit on the subject. We don't do, it's like so many other things in the car. We're not doing them at the same frequency. It used to be a car, you know, in its lifetime is going to have 3 or 4 water pumps. Now a lot of them, the only time you're going to replace that water pump is at a timing belt interval, and it's not because it's failed. It's because you don't want it to fail.
Well, timing belt intervals, it used to be 60,000 miles, and realistically, I still hear people sell them like that. They're like stuck in the old days.
They're not stuck in the old days. They're stuck in the trying to take people for money that they shouldn't be spending.
They shouldn't be spending, but it's really more of a 110,000 mile thing, and that's when we're seeing the water pumps. You know, that's when we want to address them, because we know if we take, and there's 2 types of water pumps. There's a kind of water pump. I guess I should step back a bit. A water pump, what that does is that circulates water throughout your engine. And I say water, but what I mean is coolant or antifreeze. That's what cools the engine. So the water pump has an impeller in it, so it's driving the water, and then it's driven by one of 2 things, either a drive belt, so something that turns the alternator and the AC compressor, and then the water pump, or driven by timing belt. So those are going to be kind of your 2 types. The type that are driven by the timing belt, you really can't see them. If you open the hood, they're behind a cover somewhere, but you can't see them. And then the other kind that you can actually look at. Well, the timing belt type, driven by the timing belt, so you're going to do a timing belt at 110,000 miles. You got to take apart the front of the engine to get to that timing belt. Well, we're going to do the water pump, whether it's good, bad, or indifferent, because we know that water pump is not going to last as long as the timing belt that we're putting on, because it's going to be another 110,000 miles before we're back there.
Yeah, likely.
But you said in the old days, in your shop, you would do 3 water pumps a day.
Oh, hell, you couldn't, I don't know, the term is swing a dead cat without hitting a water pump coming off of something, and that was constant. But we have changed that now, and it's for a lot of that is the difference in the water pumps that the manufacturers are putting on. And one of my problems is that the aftermarket water pumps that we're getting, a lot of them do not have the same quality. So you put one on that's been 110,000 miles or 100,000 miles or 150, and you put one on there that's going to go 40. Yeah, it's way cheaper, but I find that the Ison and the most expensive that you can buy are the only ones that I'll use, because everything else is not. It's just not good enough, and there's such a high failure rate. And it's also, it's not that every technology is new. It's also the coolant that we're using, and these manufacturer-specific coolants. And I got to admit, I don't stock every single, of the 150 different manufacturer-specific coolants, but I do stock different coolants, and the universal coolants will cause water pump failure because they're not what that water pump is designed for. It's so critical to put that water pump into the environment that it was designed for.
You hit on, we've talked about a couple things. The water pumps don't fail like they used to, but you're still going to buy a water pump at some point. Mm-hmm. But even before the show, we're talking about quality, and you can pick up the phone and go down the phone book. How much for your water pump? How much for your water pump? How much for your water pump?
Sure.
And I would venture to guess I could buy a water pump that cost me $25. I'm just going to, or I could buy one that cost me $125 at my cost, which then I'm going to mark up to the customer. Mm-hmm. That's a huge price difference.
Huge, and it makes you cringe because you don't want to tell, you'd much rather do the job, make your profit, and quote them $500 instead of $700, especially if there's somebody down around down the corner or something that it's going to buy a Chinese sourced water pump that probably won't go 20. It'll work fine. They drive the car away. It seems to be fine, but 20,000 miles later or 30, that place is out of business. The warranty was 6 months, something like that. Now that we're extending, our warranties 3 years, 36,000 miles. Guys are going to that. A lot of guys going to 2-year, 24,000 mile warranties, and you cannot use the cheaper, junkier parts. You can't cut those corners. And water pumps is one of those areas where it's just huge, the price differential. I have problems with I'm being honest, with the most expensive water pumps that money can buy, and I still think the failure rate is too high. It's something that irritates me. No way would I cut corners, and you see guys that cut corners on that, and it just takes my breath away.
Well, there's nothing ruins a car faster than overheating it.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, you overheat a car, it's going to be an expensive repair, for sure.
Could be.
And then that may be one of those repairs where you call around and you're looking for price, and you make, because it's a lot of money, you want to save some money. It's what I call a big ticket item, but, you don't have money to do it right the first time, or, you don't want to do it a second time. Right. But cooling systems, and it's only appropriate because we're coming up to summertime, and more cars get ruined in this town than I would imagine in Payson for overheating.
You know it.
I mean, it's a regular deal. And so you brought up coolant, engine coolant, and there's 100 different kinds. There's probably only 32 flavors. I think they make ice cream as well. But there's a blue one, and there's a red one, and there's a green one. So if you're wondering, hey, when do I need a water pump? When should I be thinking about a water pump? And we know that overheating ruins cars. Well, guess what? Coolant's not green anymore. We all look for green puddles because when there's a green puddle, it's serious. Well, it still kind of has a sweet smell to it, but sometimes it's blue, sometimes it's red. What other colors am I missing here? It's pink sometimes.
Orange, green, purple, gold, yellow. And the difference in gold and yellow you can barely see, and then the coolant is different. You've got to rely on that guy that's putting coolant in your car to do the right thing. And so many people don't. They're not. And I know you and I both have talked about it. We're both anal retentive about doing the right thing.
OCD as well.
Yeah, OCD. And I don't know. I know I go a little bit overboard with stuff, but there is somewhere there's probably a happy medium. The people that just put the same junk coolant into everything and call it universal, it really irritates me because it actually will do damage. It is not the correct chemical formulation, and you can get away with that back east. You can get away with that where it's not 120 degrees in the summer. Underhood temperatures are 300 degrees for hours at a time. You can get away with that maybe. You're not getting away with that long term in Phoenix. It might go for a year, it might go for 2, it might go for 6 months, but long term it's going to cause problems, and guess what? Doing it right costs more, and here we go again. We were talking about it earlier, the people that just want cheap, and that's kind of less and less nowadays, but boy, you feel sorry for those people that just want cheap,
Well, I understand the economic pressure of it, but it's one of those things, if you don't want to pay for it the first time, you're not going to want to pay for it the second time, and you end up doing more damage. And we're talking about cars that, cars, you just don't go to the shop like you used to have to.
No, and it shouldn't be. And we have to change our business. Our business, there's a lot of discussion about it, but guys, we have to see customers less and do a better job because the cars are more reliable. They're going to go farther between services. And to try and push that or artificially change that so that we're making more money is something that I feel strongly is the wrong thing to do. The progressive shops are getting on board with it. We're going to see our customers less. It's probably going to cost more to fix the vehicle, that one visit a year instead of 3 or 4. But ultimately, it's so to the consumer's benefit. The cost of ownership is less than it used to be because each individual repair might be more, but the car is going to see a lot less repair, and to try and make it where it's not there, it's just dishonest. And
well, the things that have gone away, we used to do CV boots all the time.
Yeah,
CV boots don't go bad anymore.
Nope.
We used to do spark plugs every 30,000 miles. We don't do spark plugs every 30,000 miles. Even in my business, a transmission business, you used to service your transmission every 15,000 miles. Yeah. The fluids are better. The transmissions work better. They're designed better. They used to stick the planetary gears next to each other. Now they put them on the other end of the transmission to keep the heat down. Yep. So things, they are changing, and some people aren't adapting to it per se. The way I look at it is you buy a car brand new. And really for 100,000 miles, you're going to change the oil. There may be some brake jobs in there. There may be a set of tires in there, maybe a coolant service. There's not the maintenance that we used to see, but at 100,000 miles, there's going to be a big repair bill. It's not so much we got to do a timing belt. We got to do the water pump. We may consider looking at the radiator. If the radiator is looking a little rough, we may consider doing it at that time. There's a bunch of things that we're going to do at that time, but then you know what? It's going to be good for another 100,000 miles. You may have a repair like a transmission. People think that it's a terrible car. The transmission went out. It's actually not that uncommon. There's a bell curve of failure, and right there, 140, 150,000 miles, they do fail. That's why I have a transmission business. And but people are a little bit surprised. So you're going to have a repair there, but there's no reason you can't get 200,000 miles out of a car. They're built just that well anymore.
Most of them with minimal repair in that period of time. There's going to be some, and there's always that question of, do you fix it or do you replace it? I can't answer that because a new car is just a neat thing. It's fun to have, and sometimes the right thing to do, even if it makes no financial sense. But as far as keeping a car on the road for 200,000 miles, you and I both know we see cars every single day at 200,000 miles that I would take the car right now and drive to Connecticut with no problem at all. And we're doing that with so much less repair up to that point that it's bad for the automotive business, but that there's fewer bays, there's fewer technicians, there's fewer shops than there's ever been, and we're going to continue on that trend for a while. It'll even out, but guys still trying to make work where there isn't work is one of my big pet peeves. Tremendous financial incentive given the way the industry's going.